Hi, everyone. Welcome. Today, we are so excited to have our guest, Anika Hoybjerg, who is the CEO and owner of ABA Education Center and also the creator of the MOTAS, which we have been diving into over the last few months since we received it. And we are so excited to hear more about you and the work you do and the passion you have for the work that you do. So, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, it's such an honor to be here. Thank you, thank you. And I love your shirts.
Oh, yes, look, we are wearing shirts that say
Yes.
Kindness Crew, which was gifted to us from Anika at ABAI. You'll have to tell us, a little bit about the whole kindness method, which is also part
Yeah.
of what you do. But it was so nice to meet you in person when we went there, and we got to meet you and your daughter and hear a little bit more about you. And it's just you're so lovely. So,
Oh,
so happy
well,
to talk to you.
I feel like we're lifelong friends already. And that was so fun. Yeah, since ABAI was in Washington, D.C., my daughter's doing an internship there. And so it just kind of happened that she got to be there and meet everyone. And she's just like, oh, she's just like, this field has so many great people. So it was really fun.
Sure, we do have many great people. Okay, well, for anybody who maybe isn't familiar with you or the Modus, can we start with a little bit of an introduction? Tell us about yourself.
Sure. So I've been in the field working with children with special needs since I was actually like in high school. I got really invested in Special Olympics. When I went to college, I went to BYU. I became the area director for Special Olympics, which was really fun. And the independent team didn't have a coach. And so I got to be the coach, and I'm like the least athletic person you'll ever know, but they were really patient with me. Like all my brothers played college sports. I have a niece who's D1 volleyball player, and I have no athletic ability. So they were really, really sweet with me, and we just had a great time and formed really nice relationships. And then I decided when I went through my divorce, I had my undergrad in child development, and I didn't really know what I was going to do. And I moved home and I was living with my parents and my cute little daughter. She was only 9 months old. And I remember being like, I don't know what to do. And I went down to the local university and I literally stumbled into the school psychology department after kind of walking around. And they were so helpful. And Dr. Gerald Nunn there changed my life. Every time I think about him, I do get a little emotional because he believed in me when I needed some help. And so I got my master's in human exceptionality, which is like the first master's I got. And then I did my EDS in school psych. So I worked as a school psychologist for a while. I loved it because it was so conducive with my daughter's schedule. I got to work in her school, know all of her friends and her teachers, and it was so much fun. And then somebody really close to me started showing signs of autism, who I really love. And he went into therapy and started receiving ABA therapy. And I was just like, this is incredible. So I traveled around the United States and I looked at different ABA centers and I was like, we've got to have one of these in Utah. So I got a couple more master's degrees because I didn't know what I was doing as a school psychologist when it came to ABA. And it was just amazing. And so I opened my own clinic. So I have an ABA center here in Draper, Utah, where we provide services. We started off in a little building about 3,500 square feet, and now our building is 38,000 square feet. We moved. So it's
Wow.
much bigger, and it has two big warehouses that are big fun playgrounds. And in Utah it snows, so this way we get to use them all year round, and it's really great. And then when my daughter went off to college, I decided that I would get a PhD because I thought, why not? And so that was something that was really fun. And then just in January, I've started a master's in neuroscience and trauma because, we talk about that a lot in our field. And I thought, I don't really know what that means, or how to operationally define that and then utilize that. And I mean, it is literally, I mean, neuroscience is about the brain, right? And
Mm.
it's making my brain hurt. Like thinking about neuroscience. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but it's really stretching me and it's really fun to learn about that. Like you think about it right now, how are you breathing and smelling at the same time? And you're not even having to put any effort into it. It's
The brain
incredible.
is a cool thing.
Yeah. And so that's something that's really fun. But a couple years ago, my co-author, Casey Barron, and I, we decided to write a new assessment called the MOTAS. And that has also been taking up a lot of our time, and it's really fun. And it's just, we're doing just a lot of different things. And so that's kind of just a little nutshell.
That's incredible. For those of you who don't know the Modus, go check it out. I'm using it right now. So I would say that you can probably tell me better, Anika, but
Yeah.
I use it typically for a lot of youth I work with. A lot of these youth are getting ready to prepare for adulthood. And some of them are going to be probably going on to college or semi-independent living. Um, the AFLs is great, but it doesn't hit on enough. And you just have more sections in the Modus. So I've actually, since January and since meeting you, I've had a lot of my parents just order it. Just order the Modus,
Oh,
order the Modus. And it's really great because you have the online assessment as well. And we've been going through it together. And my parents I work with have a physical copy of the Modus, but yet we have the online assessment so that they can go through it and we can go through it on Zoom. And it's really great because I like to involve the parents in the assessment. And so, for those of you who are not familiar, it's got a lot of different sections and a lot of really awesome ones. My favorite section, I would say, is the self-advocacy section
I love that.
because it doesn't just go into, can your kid mand? Like, well, of course, right? But like, what kinds of mands? But can they self-advocate to the point where, can they sit in their own IEP meetings and advocate for their needs and wants? So it goes above and beyond. And I would say that it would be like it's a really great assessment for, kind of the broad spectrum learner because it's there, there's some things that, are really for, those intermediate learners, but then there's some things that, you've got a really advanced learner and they're like, you don't really even need to look at the AFLs because yeah, like they learn how to do laundry in like a day. But yet there's a lot of things in the Modus that you're going, oh, yes, right. And things like digital skills. Like,
Mhm.
do they know, well, A, how to shop different websites and compare prices, which is one of my favorites, but B, like, do they know what a scam is? And can they, are they safe online? And those are huge too.
Oh, I love so many things that you just said because those were a lot of the reasons in why we developed and created the Modus. Because I was having, it's meant for ages 5 and up and for all learners, because independence is going to look different for a lot of our individuals that we work with. Like some are going to be independent and go off to college and live independently, whereas some will live, at home or be in group homes, for their life. And I think that it's really nice to be able to look at the Modus and utilize goals and find out what is going to lead this individual to the most independence, and really focusing on the nuances of what they need. I love that you're focusing on like the self-advocacy section because that is something that's so important because a lot of times when we're working with some of these individuals, we're having them look outside themselves. It's like, what are they thinking? What are they feeling? What are they doing? And tacting or labeling other people's emotions or actions. And we're not really helping people recognize their own feelings. Like, hey, I like this, or I don't like this, or these are roles that I hold, or hey, that didn't feel quite right, and one thing, and I wanted to see if this was true because I'd heard from somebody and they said individuals with autism have a lot of difficulty in tattling. And I was just like, wow, like it's not like they come and say, hey, that person hurt me, or that person did this, or this was done. And so we ran a research project at my center because I wanted to see if this was true. And we had two different conditions. And one was if something was not, so let's say they were sitting at a table and they were skipped, right? Everybody else was given something and they were skipped. Would they self-advocate and be like, hey, I didn't get one? And we found that among all of our participants, none of them did. And then
Wow.
the next stage was, what if they got one and someone took it from them when they say, hey, wait, I had one, but somebody took it. And we found that they didn't do that either. But with teaching, they quickly developed that skill and we had it in their programs. And the awesome thing is that even that after that research project was over, these kids, all the participants have generalized it. And so we've been able to see that these are really meaningful skills because then that leads into consent and it leads into being able to express feelings and all of the other stuff that we're feeling that and we know this is a vulnerable population and we have to be teaching those self-advocacy and self-awareness skills because they're necessary for all of us.
Sharon and I are nodding vigorously right now with our heads like, yes, yes,
I
yes.
love what you said about things being meaningful. I mean, it's in the title of your assessment. It's making things meaningful. And the way that we've been using the MOTAS is the first part that I love is you get to send the assessment to different professionals. And we work with a lot of therapists, a lot of other people who are on a child's team, and everybody gets a say and they get to fill out their version of that assessment. It's the loop, right? That's the first part.
Yeah.
And then we use the areas of the MOTIS to kind of create a long-term goal. And I think that in behavior analysis, we often get so stuck in the technical, and that's where a lot of the other assessments become so technical. Like, can you man for 100 things? Can you man for 50 things? Can you tact 10 items? And it gets so technical, and we forget the meaningful part. So I love that we can think about the big picture. Let's create a meaningful long-term goal. And then using our skills of behavior analysis, let's break it down for this learner. What does it mean for this learner to advocate for themselves? What does it mean for this learner to participate in household living? And so I find that that's a really nice balance in the way that we're able to use the assessment in working towards meaningful outcomes in the title of the assessment, which is such a good tool that I don't think we've had until now.
Oh, I love hearing that. Yeah. And I think you mentioned the loop interview, like you're talking about how we have one for the parent and caregiver. Another one that we have is for the client. And where applicable, we want the client to be actively engaged in their own program and their treatment, because then we get buy-in and we actually find out what is most meaningful to them. We had 8 individuals who are on the spectrum help us write that interview because we
Mhm.
wanted to make sure that it was very conducive, the language that wasn't offensive or demeaning in any way, and that, was actually hitting parts that mattered. And it was interesting because in the self-awareness section, I was talking with Michael Christiansen and we were going through it. And he said to me, Anika, you haven't asked me about where I see myself, like where I see myself in the future. And I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't. And he's like, yeah, where do I see myself in 5 years or 10 years? And I was like, that is a really important question. And when people, are invested in that, then we can all be on the same page and get to that social validity component of what's really important. And it's for so many different types of learners, but I remember I would have BCBAs, like they would come into my office, and let's say we have a third grader who's mainstreamed, and they're doing well academically, but there are some social concerns, or there's some perspective taking, or there's, the self-awareness part or relationship, all of that stuff that we're just like social skills that we need to focus on, but that aren't really addressed in assessments in ways that really are fit for that population. And like you were saying, I think a lot of people look at an assessment as the guide and they try and make the individual fit in that assessment. Like this individual has to check off all these boxes and then we can move on to something else. But I need to have all these boxes checked because I feel like if I do that, then they'll be school ready, or then they'll, like there's all this hope in the investment or the assessment rather than in the individual, that you're just like, that's not how it works. You don't sculpt the individual to the assessment. You only use an assessment if it's going to make their life better.
Oh
And
my
I
gosh,
think
you're talking
that's
our language. We talk about this so much about assessments are not the curriculum,
nope.
that they are not like our goal is not to check off boxes on the assessment. It is to look at the whole person and look at the individual. And that has become so lost in the field because it is really what we should be doing.
You would never do that on a psych test, right? You as a psychologist, you would never, teach to a psych assessment. Why are we teaching to an ABA assessment? It doesn't make sense to me. And not every student is one size fits all. We actually have a slide that we put in a lot of our presentation that literally is like a cookie cutter and a robot. And we're like, kids are not cookie cutter robot material. Like, do not do this. Let's look at the whole individual. So you're definitely speaking our language.
Yeah. Well, and I think we've put a little bit too much faith in assessments, right? We are not using our clinical judgment, or we're pulling a little bit from these goal banks. And it's like, I don't really know, but I'm hoping, that this will work out in the future at some point. And, we say this all the time. And I know that you agree with this, right? Nobody has ever brought me their child because they can't match a 2D object to a 3D object.
I love
That's
that.
not why they're bringing them to us.
Right.
It's because there are other concerns that are so meaningful, that are impactful, that we can teach and that they can learn.
I remember listening to Peter Gerhardt speak for the first time. I was probably, I don't know, 25. And I heard him speak at a conference, and he said, nobody points out the person across the bar and says, wow, they know all their states. I've got to talk to this person. It's no, like they've got their stuff together. They're wearing deodorant and they smell clean. Let's go talk to them, right?
Oh, there is just so much that goes on with that too, and learning that in the neuroscience degree. There, when you're sitting in one place in a crowded room and you have to get to the other side of the room, there is so much going on inside of your brain. There's so much social navigation and paying attention to the different stimuli just to get across the room and introduce yourself to someone. And then that's amplified that, yeah, states, who cares? Who cares in that moment, right? And there's the article that's like, I can identify Saturn, but I can't brush my teeth.
Yes, I
Like
just read that one recently.
yeah, that's such an important article and making sure that we are focusing on what's most meaningful and recognizing above above everything else, like these are people, like we are working with amazing individuals and people who definitely, deserve the most dignity and respect from us and the respect that we're utilizing their time appropriately. So,
So true. I'm, I'm so interested in all of your degrees and
oh,
learning that you've done. How do you feel like it's impacted the work that you do? Like, is it just something you're interested in, or do you find you're able to really integrate and combine all of these amazing skills?
it's so interesting because if you had told me when I was like a brand new little freshman going to college that I would be doing what I'm doing, I would be like, there's no way. And no, I don't want to sign up for that. Right. And this is really embarrassing, but I'm going to tell you it anyway. I graduated from college with a 2.66 GPA because I had the best time of my life. It was the greatest time, and I was just like, it doesn't matter, but life kind of threw me into this place where I needed to work on school and I needed to do education in order to help other people. And some people have asked me, like, oh, is there a degree that you wish you wouldn't have done? Or was that one a kind of a waste of time? And I'm like, no, it's interesting how every single one of them has given me additional information to do what I need to do. Like we're working on an early intervention uh, MOTAS. I call it baby
Cool.
MOTAS, but we call it MOTAS early learner, but I just say because it's for our babies. It's birth to 5. Um, but it's interesting because my undergrad was in child development. And so I totally needed that, And then the other part of school psychology, I administered thousands of assessments and I worked on assessments and I understand the difference between standardized and criterion referenced. And, like you were saying, you should not teach to standardized assessments. People don't understand that. You don't, like those are not, that's not the intent of how those should be used. And so that was really helpful. And then, a degree with a master's in instruction and curriculum, that's really helpful when you're writing content. And so I feel like they've been helpful in different ways, but also the main drive is how do I become better? Because it's a really humbling position when you're talking to parents or you're talking to colleagues and you know that you should know more and it's really embarrassing. And I feel like imposter syndrome is super real. And I'm like, if I really, like somebody said one time, there, you can't really help people unless you're willing to make the sacrifice. And so I'm like, that's true. Like you got to do the work to actually be qualified to do what you need to do. So I love doing it. I mean, I grumble in the process like everybody does, but I love what I learn and I do find it all applicable, even though I was a horrible student in college.
I laugh. When you said that about the 2.6 GPA, I don't know if you've watched Pretty Woman, but there's a scene in Pretty Woman where she walks into a store and they reject her because of what she's wearing and everything else. And she comes back later and she's got all of these really expensive bags. And she goes back to the first store and she says, do you work on commission? Mistake. Big mistake. So you
Well,
go back to your teachers and go, hey,
Look what I
you know
did.
what? They like this was the nice thing is like I told you when I was going through my divorce and I was totally broken and I came into Dr. Gerald Nunn's office wanting to do a master's, in my school psychology program. He was so sweet to me and I had my transcript and I was sitting there across from him and he looks at me and he's like, this is bad. I'm like, I know. I'm like, I promise you, I will try so hard. I will do whatever I need to do. And he's like, I'm going to take a chance on you. And he
How
did.
great is
But
that?
you know what else it shows? And I think that this is a lesson for all of us, that it's not about what you know, and it's not about what your marks are or whether you pass the exam. It really is about building yourself as a person and your trust and compassion and, having people believe in you. That's what we do. We sell ourselves as people who can help other people, and someone has to believe in that, not because we gave the right answer or we got a test score. And so I think that that's a really good lesson for everybody.
Yeah. Well, and he had really high expectations for me too. It was like, okay, come in. And it was just like, I know you can do it. And so, high expectations, high support. Like that was what was so incredible
But I
that,
mean, you think about our learners, it's the same thing. We have high expectations for them. We
yeah,
lead with compassion. We have high expectations for them. And, we don't we set a bar, but then we keep raising that bar instead
yeah.
of saying, okay, just get to here. And I think it holds true for all of us and our learners.
I love that. And I think that is so important because one time I was in an in-service and the person said to me, he's like, well, when was the first time that you felt purpose? Like,
Hmm.
when did you feel that? And some people were like, oh, like when I became a mom or when I became a teacher or when I did this. And he goes, every single one of us needs to have two things. We need to feel like we have a purpose and we need to feel like we're progressing. And he's like, that is so important for your learners. Like, you don't get to take that away from them. Like, we need to make sure that everybody feels like there's a progression and that also what they're doing is meaningful, that it matters.
That's very true.
And it's just like, yeah, that's true. So
Yeah.
robbing anybody of that is not fair.
Wow. Yeah. I love all of that. And I think it brings us to another one of your passion projects, which is the kindness.
Oh, yeah.
Our shirts say the
Kindness crew. We
kindness.
got in the crew.
Yeah, with the little bunny on there because so that was my dissertation because, and you guys know this more than anybody. You guys are like the kindest people ever. You see, you guys should like lead the whole charge on all this.
Oh, can we
But
be the team captain? Can
what?
we be the team
We're
captain?
always
Yes,
picked last
yes,
for things on
yes. You
sports
guys,
teams. So
you
can you
guys are the
just be first
captains.
this time?
Yes, I love that. We should come up with a cheer. Um, Um, so yeah, so I did my dissertation on that because the reason there's the rabbits is because there was this amazing study that was done several years ago and it's called the rabbit effect because there was a woman and they were evaluating the study like heart health on rabbits. And so they had some rabbits and they wanted to see what had happened, but they found that one group of rabbits had significantly better health. Like their cholesterol was lower, all of these different things, and they couldn't figure out why. And they're like, this doesn't make any sense. And they learned that all of the rabbits who had better health were under the care of one researcher. And everybody, when they described her, they just said, she's unusually kind. They're like, she can't help it. It's just who she is. And so when she would
Got
feed the rabbits,
shivers.
I know. And so when she would feed the rabbits, she'd pick them up and she'd talk to them and she'd cuddle them and she would talk so nice to them. They're like, well, this can't be the only reason. That doesn't make any sense. And so they redid the study, they replicated it, and they got the same results. That
Wow.
all of these rabbits who were treated with kindness did better. And so Dr. Kelly Harding did a whole book on that and showed that even in the medical like field and everywhere, when people are just treated with a little bit of kindness, their health is better. There are so many
Mhm.
benefits. And so I did that for my dissertation where we had a neutral condition and a kind condition, and we just saw amazing results. We found that the kids were happier, their skill acquisition was higher, they were more engaged, they felt, and there was a study that was done years ago. It was like, what is the number one indicator of a great work environment? And it was community efficacy, where people felt like they could make mistakes. Like if they made mistakes, it was okay. They were treated nice. And, we see more creativity when people are treated with kindness. We just see so much. And so that's why at the end of the MOTAS, there are goals for providers it's called the kindness method because it's not just about being sweet or being nice. It's having those high expectations of I'm going to help you grow and I'm going to have integrity or I'm going to express gratitude, all of these things that are actually kind.
Well, we're going to put a link in the website
Yeah,
to your MOTAS, but also to the kindness method. It's on your website.
yeah.
Go download it. It's a nice, you can do it as a supervisor to a supervisee, or you can do it as a self-assessment. And I did it as a self-assessment, just going through and going, okay. And, some of it was like, do I do that? And it's just a nice reminder. And I think that we're the biggest critics of ourselves, right? Because, somebody else might go through and go, yeah, of course, of course, of course. But you're reading it yourself and going, I could actually do better with that piece of it. So it's a really nice reminder, regardless of how
Well,
compassionate you are, to do these little things. And it's nice because it breaks down, quote unquote, what kindness is and what compassion is. So it's just a nice reminder for all of us.
oh, I love that. Well, and those are can be really fun because it can just be opportunities for growth, like I'm saying, we all want to progress. Like it feels good to become a little bit more aware, and you can do it in a way that is very kind, and we've done it with our whole center. There was one of our RBTs, she was so sweet, and she decided that she wanted to express more gratitude. That was her goal that she worked on. And so she wrote thank you notes to each of the mothers of the children that she worked with for Mother's Day and just expressed a whole, gratitude for being incredible mothers and letting her work with their children. And, it goes a long way to just do
Mhm.
little things like that that make big differences.
Especially in the work that we do. I think cultivating a certain level of awareness and self-assessment and knowing what our strengths are, because it is very sensitive work and we have high expectations of our learners, but they need to be our bunnies, we need to like nurture them. And I think that's a really great reminder.
Yeah, and it makes a difference. I know, like somebody was saying the other day, like how much different we feel when we're treated with kindness. Like it can change our whole day. I was telling people I was having a bad day one time. I was at the store and I kind of was a little grumpy with the person who was working there. And she happened to know my cousin, and she was just like, I hear, you've been going through a lot. And I was like, yes. And it changed.
Waterworks.
Yeah, and it changed me. All of a sudden, there was somebody on my side, and she could have gone off and been like, "Oh, she was rude," or "She's this," you know what I mean? Instead of showing me all
Mhm.
this kindness in just a minute, and it changed my heart, and it made me feel, loved and better. And then I don't know, it changes
Powerful.
us,
Yeah.
I could go off on a whole tangent about, compassion over productivity. And when you're really busy and bogged down, I think the first thing to go is probably that compassion piece. I mean, it is. It's not that I think there's been a whole study. LeBlanc and Taylor did a huge study on this.
Yeah.
And, since then, we talk about it more and more and more. And at some point in time, sometimes as educators, we have to put down our computers. Do I dare say put down our data sheets and actually just, have a conversation, right? But it's so, so important.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think you're right because we are human, and we have bad days. And I think understanding that our learners do too, right? Like they aren't going to have every day be perfect, and it doesn't mean, like, that's the thing, is that when we talk about the kindness method, we say it's the method. Kindness doesn't have to be earned, right? Like it's not the reward. It's not like, okay, after you've done everything, now we'll treat you
I
with
love
kindness.
that. Yeah,
Like
it's
Wow.
nice.
it's
So
in the
important.
future, right? It's like it's how we do everything. It's how we greet each other. It's how we respond. Like you can count on it. I mean, that woman with her rabbits, right? She didn't withhold kindness if they were jumping around too much or eating too fast or making a little too much noise. They didn't have to earn her kindness. It was there. It was always there.
Right.
And
Yeah. Wow. I
that's an
love that.
important part. Yeah.
So something we like to ask towards the end is what advice would you have for a newly minted BCBA, somebody who's just getting in the field? You have so much experience, so many degrees. What could you say to somebody who's just starting out?
Oh my gosh. I might get emotional. I would just say thank you. Thank you for having a heart that wants to come in and serve people and love people and make a difference. This is a field that is really needing really good people who want to make a difference. And there are going to be ups and downs. Like nothing is going to just be, this is a great trajectory all the way up, right? There's going to be learning curves where you're like, hey, this is really cool, or I'm the biggest idiot and I know nothing and I shouldn't even be doing this. But I just say stick with it, like keep going through, work through those parts, find people who are doing what you want to do and talk to them. Like other people are our greatest resource, find people that you want to be like and learn from them, and I think that it'll just elevate our whole field if everybody's wanting to be a little bit better. But I love new BCBAs. I love their excitement. I love their enthusiasm. I love their hearts. They're just really, really good people in this field. So, and expect to fall in love with your clients. Expect to have them steal your heart. Like we all have that. They're going to change you. This field's going to change you, and it's going to make you understand, you know, what it means to, yeah, really care about other people, I think.
Yeah, and I think it does change you. It changes us, and we have to be open to evolving with that and learning through that, and cultivating that level of awareness that I mean, none of us had when we started, for sure. And I think you just showing everybody by example how you can continue to learn and continue to grow and continue to serve, which really is going to make, I think, a lot of people's lives richer and happier.
Yeah.
Kinder.
Yeah, I love it. Yes, and kinder. Well, and I think like listen to your supervisors, even those that you don't agree with, they can teach you so much. Like you want to have all of their experience and knowledge. And I think there's so much to learn and just be open to always learning.
Yes. Yeah, that sounds
Amazing
amazing.
advice. Yeah.
Okay.
Anika, I could talk to you for hours.
Let's talk. Okay, we need to at a conference hang out.
Yeah, we'll make
Absolutely.
some plans because we're the
Absolutely.
team captains.
Come up with our cheers.
I'll bring
Yes.
the pom-poms.
Okay.
Thank you for being here, and we're excited to hear more about Baby Modus and all the things that you have planned. And hope to see you again in person really soon.
Okay, that'll be so fun.
And for everybody listening, we'll post all of the links that we talked about today into the podcast notes. So go check it out. We're really excited about our upcoming CEU on Thursday, September 18th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time.
We'll be talking all about the new assessment, the MOTAS.
We're so excited to hear more about the MOTAS, Anika. So please join us live, or you can watch the recording asynchronously afterwards, and you get one learning CEU.
Hope to see you there.